Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another recap review of the hit MGM Plus show, Godfather of Harlem. It's your boy Lucas, your boy Naj here, as we are here to give you the full deep dive and breakdown into this amazing show. So we're on episode 7 here. This episode is called All Roads Lead to Malcolm. But before we get into everything, what's going on tonight, my guy?
Feeling intense. I usually come to this show and I'm really at peace and I'd be ready to get into it, but the outside world is causing stress right now, but it's all good. We're ready to have some fun tonight.
You can't even tell he's stressed. My boy came to the review with the Jalen Rose $100 haircut.
Shout out to my barber, Chris. He definitely be showing love, getting me out the way. Shout out to my guy.
So let's get to the beginning of this episode. The beginning of it is just the start of this new operation between Bumpy and Jose battle. What did you think about this? The quick way we start off this episode with just them setting up everything here. I have questions, but I'm gonna let you go first. Then I'm gonna ask my odd questions.
So, what I love about this show, and I'm really getting to a point where I'm starting to think that this may be the best show in this genre.
I remember telling you that a couple years ago.
It's okay. We'll let that go. We have to let things go, except for the things I'm frustrated about right now. I don't have to let that go right now. But I love that this show has a healthy balance of, we'll just say, for whatever your beliefs are, conspiracy theories and history intertwined with a series that this does good storytelling. All the characters you're invested into, your thoughts and information you may have about other context come into play. And I just love how everything mixed. And I think in the beginning of this episode, knowing that the FBI is getting ready to put their foot down on things, you just was like, okay, so we already know there's an issue with Jose and Bumpy on the rise by the conclusion of the next episode.
Yeah.
We already know what the CIA is doing here. Now the FBI, Jonathan Pike is in this. I just was just like, man, I know this is about to be an insane episode. So I love the introduction of the beginning of this episode and all things to come. And by the way, we need to change the title of this show to The Princess of Harlem, which features Stella, the most dangerous character of them all.
Oh my God. If we don't get into any other character this episode, we are going to get into just the recklessness of Stella here. But again, I at first had questions of the way they were cutting the coke. I had to remember that they are like actually cutting it. I don't know why I assumed they just got this fresh and then was giving it out to people. But I mean, because I did like the way they set up, because you see the operation and you see how it moves, and you see the assembly line work here that they get this together with. It's just more surprising because, again, this is a drug that isn't known well by Bumpy. And just the way they choose to cut it. Like this is a good scene just to show you, like, hey, they're taking what's not a lot of product for what they do. And the way he's like, okay, we cut it to the point where it makes it serviceable for people. Because I know we talked about it with the Ducci. The issue is, as Bumpy said, it creates fiends. What you want to do here is create repeat customers. And that's the first thing that popped in my head when I saw the way this episode opened up. It's like, this is the businessman we're accustomed to seeing Bumpy be.
Also, this is also a show of just the blatant ignorance is everything. And by the way, folks, I know, like, in the community, we like to think ignorance is like a negative thing. But ignorance is truly just the lack of education about something. That's all it is. So you say he's ignorant to what's happening with this operation. He's ignorant to the larger game that he's involved with. And he's also ignorant to the influence and power and the reach of the Alphabet Boys here, which he's going to go and take a nice 2 to 3 semester class this episode on.
Sure. And we thought that he had taken this lesson last episode. He just needed a little bit more learning, and he got it here.
Yeah, like I said, he
100%
always
so.
got to have his moments where he has this explosive walk off, like he did the thing, and it's kind of laughable. And I also think it's laughable because I also think that's what a lot of other folks think about black people and everything,
There you
thinking like,
go.
oh yeah, he thinks he's the man, but little does he know. And actually, in this case, it actually is right.
He knows a lot. Yeah, but at first he knows nothing, but then he knows a lot because he's Bumpy. He can piece things together better than most people can.
Yeah,
But
and by
next up,
that definition, that's the real that's the cultural ignorance that y'all like to
yes,
label people as.
there you go. There you go. The moment they call you an ignorant blank blank,
Yeah.
that's a completely different form of the word there.
Yeah.
But next up, we have Joe meeting with the families. At this point, he is extremely hot because he finds out about the hit that Chin has on him. And here he's told the reason that the hit is out on him, and that's because he tried to sleep with Stella. We know Joe to be a hothead.
Yeah.
Did you think he would come off this harsh towards the family about this?
Absolutely, because they're all Italian, they're loud. So harsh, no. But did I think he'd be that explosive? Yes. It was no disrespect happening there. They just talk that loud. So very normal day in the meetings of the families here.
Now, next up, the biggest part of the episode, and this is where we see Bumpy and Jose meeting just to go over business about the next shipment coming in. And here we get the first introduction to the other alphabet boys who come in the door. Not the ones that Jose is working for, but the FBI, led by Pike, as they arrest Jose Battle for money laundering. Where did you think this was going to go here?
I did not know, because there's a lot to make with such a very short but sweet moment before the title sequence. Is that Bumpy's looking like, wait, what? Because you have to think about this now. Bumpy seeing Jose Battle arrested is definitely like okay,
yeah,
that's a big dog. So what am I not getting here? Why am I not getting arrested? And who is arresting him? Hold on, the FBI's arresting him, and he has a CIA. At this point, I literally think that like this is the most probably most authentic moment in Forrest Whitaker's career in acting, because I think if you didn't know anything and you was thinking like, wait, how does this scene even make sense? And it's true to the character, because he's thinking like, from everything I know, because like think about this now, like if you just I can't even think of a really good analogy, but if you hung with somebody who was just completely connected, it's a bad analogy, but we'll just go with it. Like an influencer. If you was with an influencer, you saw him got into every club, giving free things left and right, and you're just like, they got 1,000 cars, and then all of a sudden they're meeting the president, they're doing commercials for the White House, and then next thing you know, you see him arrested by some suit guys. You're like, wait, what? Like, I'm confused.
It would be like the DC equivalent of seeing John Wall kicked out of Rose Bar. You're like, wait, something doesn't make sense here. Like, how is this possible? That's the look that Bumpy gave to the situation. But instead of going to the next scene of importance, which would be something we could talk about right after this, let's go to the next scene with Bumpy, and that is with him meeting with Wild Bill, trying to find out why Jose Battle was arrested and not him.
Yeah.
And then him getting the news that it's a rat somewhere, and that's the only way this could ever happen. What do you think about this setup? Because this is here, I kind of thought maybe the CIA was attempting to play Bumpy in a way here.
For sure.
By saying it was a rat in his organization. But as we find out later on, this was true. He actually believed it was a rat in his organization here. But what do you think about this initial setup of basically him telling Bumpy also, like, they know you wouldn't snitch, but they don't know that about Jose. Yeah. Like, that's a weird thing to say.
There is a lot of moving pieces here, and I'm trying to be removed from what I already know. And we know there's a issue and always a conflict between jurisdiction and the handling of cases, high profile cases. FBI versus CIA. So could this all be a collaborative scheme to get Bumpy? Hell no. But I can see how anybody can think that. Can think that like we're gonna intimidate him by removing the most powerful person he know in his inner circle in Jose Battle. this certainly should make him start to talk, because like if he touched him, then he absolutely can touch me. Yeah, I would think that too.
Yeah.
If you touching Jose, he damn sure can get
Mhm.
me. But then understanding that like the FBI was taking it a step above
Yeah.
with their intimidation towards the CIA to letting them know like, hey, this is our case.
Yeah.
And we don't care about Bumpy. We'll use him if we can, but like we don't care about Bumpy here. We're telling you to back the hell up off our case. So
Yeah.
I love a couple of things here. I love how Bumpy has the little emoji with the squiggly eyes because he has no fucking clue what's happening.
Anything of what's going on here.
And Wild Bill is so calm and collective because it's like, okay, they made their move on the board. We're up next. And so I was just interested about just the different things we got going on here. Look, what is it, like 3 minutes in the episode here? And we got the CIA versus the FBI, the pawns around it, Stella versus all of Harlem, the families colliding with one another. and Stella got more blood on her hands. Like,
I'm about to say, speaking of blood on her hands, it was the thing I skipped, and we're gonna go to it here. And this is when Joe meets with Stella to find out everything, as he hears the rumor that they slept together, and at this point he doesn't know where the rumor came from. He don't know how this rumor came out of nowhere. And here we have Stella lying to lie to set up other people instead of just focusing on this aspect of it. What Stella does. I'm gonna ask a broader question. Would you just think about Stella's actions this entire episode,
right
from here to the progression of everything else she did in this episode, that she put everybody in bodily harm to get what she wanted, but yet and still she wants to come across as innocent?
I didn't think about it that way, but I definitely thought that like she just does not understand what she's doing at any given time, and she's the most contradicting, most confusing. And I know the folks on the internet love to make this statement, but I may have to agree. When somebody doesn't like a character, the first statement they say is, "Oh, they gotta go." I think it's about time that Stella gotta go.
Like Stella gotta go.
Like,
oh yeah,
I've never seen a person that's like, I don't want nobody to be harmed, and then 2 seconds later, like, but Feynman, by the way, the lawyer, it's probably him that did it. And oh, Joe, what are you gonna do, Joe? Because not that I know you didn't cut somebody's head off already. You just told us that, or you just done killed anybody who you ever disagreed with. You certainly wouldn't hurt Joe. I mean, Feynman, would you? Because I don't want anybody to hurt. And she's, yeah, what are you gonna do to him? And his answer was, anything. I want to by any means necessary. I just don't get Stella. Like, and again, it's a fantastic job in acting because she really provokes emotions from the audience. And sometimes you hate her, sometimes you love her. Hell, I thought she was getting ready to fall in love with Joe in this, and I'm just like, bro, like she got one or two options: either get somebody killed and fall in love with the person she shouldn't. That's all she gives us, and I love it. But I hate it, but also love it.
And then she went from, and that's why I said I want to stick with Stella here. She goes from this conversation with Joe to partially telling him the truth about things, and then setting up her father at the end. Like, as a extremely reckless character like this, like Stella is portrayed here to be, like, that's how she becomes the most dangerous person on the show, because it literally makes no sense, the moves that she's making here. Because if you're doing all of this just to get to Paris, how are you gonna live when you get there if you burn everything down before you get there?
Hey, listen, trust me, Watch the Throne is one of my favorite albums too, and honestly, starting this album off with that song absolutely made me want to get to Paris, but not as much as Stella at this point. And I don't know if she's
Nobody does.
Who knows what is in Paris that I need to know about, because at this point now, by any means necessary is her tactic. And when Joe said it sounds intimidating, but Stella doesn't say it, and it's even more of a threat. It's the weirdest
exactly. And for her to be this entire time of her wanting her freedom, why would you hold the cards that you actually know who set you up in the beginning? Like, we could have ended all of these issues if she'd have just said, hey, by the way, my stepmother tried to get me killed. Let's find out who she hired to get me killed.
Yeah, because you know how the families operate.
End of you being in any form of prison.
Yeah, because you know
your father would have handled it.
Right. You know how the families operate here. Like, it's not like who did it was with Joe or Chin or anybody on your side of the family. Although you may have assumed Olympia may have had somebody close by, but after a while you start to listen. Process of elimination now, because if Joe wanted to kill you, he would have did it. Obviously, he's not shy of killing folks, so you could just at this point you should be able to trust him. But I dislike how when they're asked about like why would somebody even draw that conclusion, and she does skip the obvious, like y'all did go to dinner. That is a factor that you could have used here, but I don't know. It's just kind of like, oh boy,
that's
here
the
goes Stella.
very first thing. And you're giving her gifts, like and gifts that other people could have seen you give. Like,
working extra late hours. There's a lot of other things she could have concluded here, but you know, Stella isms, the queen of Harlem.
Yeah. Exactly. Next up, speaking
Princess.
of people jumping to conclusions, because I know the whole audience is, as it pertains to Malcolm and this storyline so far. Here next, we have another conversation between Malcolm and Elise about the threats on his life and about how dangerous this UN thing is going to be. But the most interesting part here is when Malcolm tells her, I know I'm going to die soon. I'm not here long, but I need to have the impact. We understand right now we're on the countdown clock here of how much longer you can actually have Malcolm X in this show. What do you think so far about just the way he's portrayed and just how stern and just how justified he is in his stance here of saying, no matter what, I'm going to still do this? Because I know this helps lead to for people that don't know the full history of Malcolm X, maybe this is helping people understand just the leader, the speaker, the person that he was before everything like with the nation is brought to fruition. For most people, it's about, hey, this was still a man who, for his people, was willing to sacrifice everything, including his life.
Yeah. Okay. So one thing I just want to quickly go back to, while Bill definitely telling Bumpy to talk to your folks or they will be handled, a very calm threat that Bumpy is like very much unaware.
We say they had the rat.
Yeah. So, you know, just, you know, but anyway, Malcolm X, listen, he is labeled as the most dangerous man in the world. Repeat that, folks. Everything I didn't say about this guy, he's considered the most dangerous man in the world. Why? Because the whole world is watching him. The whole world is either looking for him to be the start of a revolution, but almost like a revolt. And then there's others that know that the moment he opens his mouth, he has that capability to do so. Superpowers are after one another. Religious war, what's it called? Holy war is imminent, and even internally, you have the different mosses collectively.
The nation, technically,
the nation,
members of the nation, not the nation, but the certain members of the nation, rogue members of the nation want him dead here.
And Malcolm is smart, and he understands. Like, and again, folks, this is the other thing about him being a prophet, and in terms of the things you said, these folks that lead people to whatever end have already very much understood that there's no coming back from this. I get it, he's Muslim, so he's not thinking about Jesus, but that's sort of the act of Jesus, of knowing that how dangerous of what happens here. I know my fate is my fate, and it is what it's going to be. And there's a lot of other folks who have done the same thing, who says, no matter what, I'm going to make sure that my impact is felt in this world, and my fate is my fate, and that's it. Not scared. I'm not running. If you're running up on me, I'm going to make sure I go down with a fight. This is a guy that has completely made peace with death, which also makes him a very dangerous man, even if he's still for nothing. Because
if you take away the fear of death, what is there left?
What is there left?
Like, it's hard to control someone who's not afraid of dying.
So I love that this may be truly the moment of the crescendo in the story arc here, because if there had been any other, I don't know, disagreement in terms of what Malcolm meant in terms of what he was doing, this is it. And by the way, folks, the CIA and the FBI are fighting each other in order to get to him first.
Yes. It's kind of hard for people to understand Like this is why this show is really good and could lead to people asking more questions. While this is based on
Or
true facts, you can
researching.
go back, yeah, and you go back
Mhm.
and look at Malcolm X, but look at all the black leaders at this time period and wonder why was the CIA and FBI so involved with any of them?
Yeah.
They viewed them all as a threat.
Langston
Like it's
Hughes, folks.
crazy. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We had a whole movie about J. Edgar Hoover, and the key person he was going after was Martin Luther King. Like it's amazing just how a powerful a powerful black man can lead to so much fear in this time period. But speaking of that, next up, Omar, who's meeting with a member of, I think she's a member of Moss, something number 7. She's part of the head Moss that Malcolm got kicked out of. Here it looks like he is playing the double agent to help set up Malcolm.
No, it doesn't.
And
no, it doesn't. This looks no.
Not to you, sir. To the audience, it looks that way.
It literally looks like he's just back on the board. It doesn't look like he's playing double agent to me. It was surprising that he's playing double agent.
I meant double agent in the sense that he's already went to a lease and saying, I want to be with Malcolm. And then all of a sudden now it's become a double because all of a sudden he goes back to them like, I'm trying to help you get Malcolm. And then he turns triple agent when he goes back around again and be like, no, I did that for you.
Right, because the last time we seen him was the destructive dinner that happened, which ultimately you think like without the mom approval, did this make him turn the page back and say, okay, fuck it. Let me go back to correct what I was doing, you know?
No, because remember he told I can't remember her name, the woman he was talking to. It's slipping my mind her name.
Yeah.
But he told her like
Marnie.
Yeah, Moni. That his whole pursuit of Elise was to get closer to Malcolm. So he was playing that double agent. That's what I meant by double agent. He was playing it right there to her.
Okay. Yeah.
And we just assume here out of this, like, okay, so did he do all of this to get close to Elise, to get her to forgive him, to actually still pursue to kill Malcolm?
Yeah.
That's what I meant by that. But then by the end, we see that was never his goal. His goal was actually to help out. Do you like the progression that we've gotten from Omar as a character this season?
I can't even believe this, man. This is a character that had me fooled. I said he's a sucker, and that's it. And the fact that, like, you can tell he's just one of those type of guys that is looking for any bit of recognition, any bit of patting on the back, you know. He wants to be that guy. And I think what I thought sold him over when it was like, no, you and Omar, you and Henry are heroes. And I was like, oh boy, that's the reassurance he needed. Now he back on deck. But wow, what just great storytelling here with a character that I think we instantly did not like. We ultimately never trusted. And considering the range, the reach in which this character was willing to go in order to get rid of Malcolm, there was no coming back. And like, again, I think that, because I'll be honest, like, again, Malcolm X we were never educated about Malcolm. And when you hear about the different philosophies between Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, who one is very much rooted through the school system, you almost look at Malcolm as if he's a bad guy. So understand that with that perception of Malcolm, that sort of inheritedly people got, because you think about it, if you didn't teach him in school, why not? That's the question. Why didn't y'all want us to know about him? So you get these pre-notions that he's a bad guy. And to understand that Omar comes in and you're like, you know what? If Omar would have killed him, I would have been pretty pissed. I don't like that guy. Just to kind of come back around is kind of just mind-blowing to me. Like it's really cool. And I'm interested to see where he goes next, as he has gotten a promotion in this episode. But I don't know, man. They did a fantastic job with this character. Just did not like him. Really didn't like him. Never trusted him. Now I'm like, he's just not a sucker character. He actually is doing something that could be of change. Even with the fate of Malcolm, we know it is still curious to see two things. Where does him and Elise relationship go, and where does his influence and touch and whatever goes on Malcolm's side, as they used to be boys. So
and that's the key part of their relationship, is that they were close.
Yeah.
So even when he came aboard at Moss number 7, when Malcolm was there, he was adamant, like, no one's gonna touch Malcolm. That's not gonna happen. I'm not gonna allow that to happen. And then he slowly but surely got poisoned by that Moss and by Elise, by being so heartbroken that he just flipped and turned, and Malcolm had to die at that point. He let jealousy lead him down the path it shouldn't have. So
Mm-hmm.
this whole time it's been a redemption tour. This episode was just
It's a good point.
the
Yeah.
best part of the tour of him just coming out and be like, hey, I took it on my own accord to find out who was trying to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out who. And
Mm-hmm.
these are people who were close with Elise, who she would have never assumed was attempting to kill Malcolm.
Mm-hmm.
Like, again, as you said, this is a very interesting character to see exactly where he goes from here.
Mm-hmm.
Is going to be I think a pivotal part of it, because I think we're still maybe a year from Malcolm's actual death from the way that they play with the timeline here.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting to see just how far this goes. But next up, Bumpy meets Jose Battle in jail. And here's the same thing, same conversation with Jose that he kind of had with Wild Bill is, how am I here? You have to have a snitch. As Jose said, it's not my people. They already know what their fate would be. And telling Bumpy, it has to be one of his people. What did you think here? Here, did you think that actually a snitch was somebody that Bumpy was close to? Not necessarily someone in the organization, not Dale, not Pettigrew, none of them. But could it have been someone else who overheard his business and then was starting to snitch?
Nobody close to him.
Really?
And I was definitely, the gears were turning. I was like, it's not Dale, it's not Pettigrew, it's not his accountant, it's not Mayme, it's not what's his name? Giancarlo character.
No, not Powell.
Yeah, Powell.
Not at all. Powell too crooked for himself. He would have never did it.
Yeah.
I did think it was Whoopi Goldberg, though, which is his accountant. I said, because who brings in Whoopi just to be an accountant? I said, I bet you she double-crossed Bumpy. That's my whole...
Yeah.
At that point, that was the only...
Also got to pay... You also got to pay her, so, you know... kind of have her come in and come out, you know. But no, I think she was too thorough, and I think there was already accountability check with them, and plus... he helped her, you know, so I don't see that. So to me, I definitely was just like, okay, there's a bluff, and I think process of elimination, that everybody we know close to Bumpy couldn't be. So nope, try again. They're fucking with him. That's all I kept thinking. They're fucking with him, and he needs to wisen up before he falls gullible into something. And then I thought, would they be trying to somehow, some way, try to get him to turn on Malcolm by saying that Malcolm is also somehow whistleblowing about what Bumpy's doing and vice versa? I thought they may try to do something like that. Like, oh, Malcolm's been talking about you to all these other folks about what you're doing and all this other stuff, because they're buddies. The moment you turn them to one another, I mean, that's it. It's an easy target. It's an easy tactic. They do that in the interrogation room. So it was like,
exactly.
He already took a deal. So what you gonna do? Meanwhile, the other dude in the other room, they're like, you already know he took a deal. What are you gonna do?
So in other words, who get the burger and Coke
who get
first?
the cigarette? Who get the cigarette? Who get the
That's
burger?
the first person to snitch it here. But Jose did bring up an interesting group of people when he said, maybe it's one of the three people that you brought to me. And that is the banker, the lawyer, and the politician, I think, the judge. Banker, the lawyer, and the judge. And Jose Battle poses that question, and immediately Bumpy thinks of one person, and that's his lawyer, and him wondering, is his lawyer a snitch? I thought that was an interesting way to end that, because you see the moment Jose Battle says that, then a light goes off in Bumpy's head of, okay, I may not think it's anybody in my organization, but if it's one person, I know exactly who it is here.
Yeah.
I think that was just a nice way to set that up. And it leads into, well, first, Joe kidnaps Chin's lawyer. We know it's going to happen because Stella's dangerous and she just likes getting people punished and murdered, because if she can't get to Paris, no one can live. But after that, this is where Bumpy meets.
Hard motherfuckers can't fight Paris. She's like,
And she said, hard ER on that joke too.
You already know.
Nothing like Gwyneth Paltrow, who said it and said it with the A. But it's another story altogether. But next up, Bumpy meets with the bankers. And he poses a question to them. Are you all, or did you all snitch? We all know immediately the one person we would have thought. And that was the person that Bumpy goes back and forth with at every given moment out of these three, and that's the judge, isn't it?
Yeah, click
Yeah,
still.
that's the
Yeah,
judge
yeah, yeah. You know,
who's
I was waiting for
always
this.
smart out the mouth, and then Bumpy gets way smarter at him here.
Yeah.
What did you just think about the way they set up this scene of Bumpy interrogating them to find out if his trust has been betrayed and their response to him? Because I
Yeah.
think that was more telling than anything else.
Yeah, because also remember, Jose said like the person that did is gonna be the one trying to cop the biggest plea. So
Yep.
at this point now, I'm just like measuring the plea scale, and I'm like, So, but it was just a good exchange to honestly, without the ramifications of what this is even involving, this is the same conversation they have all the time. If it ain't about what their cut is and what they're not going to get involved with, and the plausible deniability that they be trying to have, I'm like, oh, this is just another day for the boys here. So. But obviously he had to evaluate who was out here copping the biggest plea. So I'm gonna miss these scenes.
But it was great just to see them say at the end, like, technically we're in this with you. There's no way we can snitch on you.
Finally, because any other time they'd be trying to act like they're not.
But not only that, just to them to speak to the loyalty aspect of it all. Like they let them know, like, technically you are part of this organization. Like,
yeah,
we put that above anything else.
Yeah,
like, that kind of just shows you, like, this is, I want to say, kind of like having a black mob where they're like, we can disagree, we can argue, but everything stays in house.
Absolutely.
And we'll just go back and forth that way with it. I thought that was an interesting way to end that conversation, because I think while Bumpy still had his reservations, I think it still gave him a little comfort to know they possibly did snitch, but if someone thought one of them snitched, I understand what they would do.
Yeah, there was definitely no obvious decision made here. So
next up on Stella's World Tour of Murder, this is where her and Joe talk about a way to get the hit off of him and to put it back on Chin. Listen, we don't need to talk about it no more because we talked about it. I'm trying to understand Stella's steps here. It makes sense if she wants to get to Paris, but I think it's beyond that at this point. I think this is just the overall grudge she has with her father, with Olympia, which I kind of understand that portion of the grudge. But do you think this is the last episode we'll see Stella in? That's a good question.
No.
Because at this point, isn't she gone to Paris?
No, she's not.
At this point.
No. Because it's Stella. Of course, she had an ultimatum of, I really like what you do. You can really do a lot for me. Boo Boo the Fools even get ready to fall in love with this guy, or she actually thinks like, oh wow, I can do something important. So as she said, oh, I guess I can take this trip later. You remember that's how flights were back in the day. You know, you didn't have to just get on that one flight you were booked. You just had a voucher to go whenever you could. You know, like, oh, I could use this anytime. Like how trains and
stuff. At first, she was gonna go to Philly. She's been begging to go to Paris. He already had offered her to go to Philly.
I heard they're the same cities, technically. By night. By night, I heard.
Well, again, next up is Omar meeting with the nation. This is where he meets.
Oh, I feel like I didn't answer your question. I'm sorry. Did I not answer your question? Oh, well,
because you said she ain't going nowhere.
Oh, yeah. But even still, though, because a couple of important things is that her also exposing that Chin is worried that Joe's going to take Harlem because he may get too powerful. Is a bit of information that Joe didn't know, but obviously he uses it to weaponize it against the families later. Also, Stella comes kind of clean here. And I think that, like, while Stella ensures him that she knows how to handle her father, I think that she also really is talking out of the range of possibilities here. Yeah. Which, if Joe happens to just be some other Joe Smo, he will probably be gullible to think that Stella could actually handle this. But although he does know that Stella definitely can't, so everything that's he's saying, it's still Chin at the end of the day. Yeah. So we got Stella talking a big game, even though she comes clean here about everything. But it's kind of just like, okay. And like Joe says, like, do you have any, like, do you know what you've done here? Like, you literally made your father my blood enemy for life.
Yep.
But also her saying that, it's also like, okay, he knew it beforehand anyway. But now for real, Joe's just like, oh
Yeah,
fuck.
and,
Oh fuck.
and he understands the danger that Chin is. In the end, like not only with Chin being a boss, Chin is reckless.
Yeah.
Like Chin could care less. He'll shoot you and wouldn't care what the families will do to him
Yeah.
in the end.
Yeah, solitary confinement, having a time in his life because he just blew the fuck up. But also too, like this, the last point here is like Stella just saying, "I know how to handle my father, not just spit out my drink." I was like, "Oh yeah, you do. Of course you do. You know how to handle everything, Stella. Like,
Yeah.
why do we even have any of these predicaments? You're so good at what you do.
But
So like,
she didn't say she knew how to handle him well. She just said she knew how to handle him.
she
That's
said
it.
handle. That's the problem. She has yet to confirm she know how to handle anything. Take it out her vocabulary.
That is true. Yeah. Again, next up, nothing here to talk about. This is just Omar's meeting with Moss 25. This is where he finds out the more information that Clyde and Sandy are attempting to kill Malcolm because they see Malcolm as a threat. As at this point, again, I'm leaning into the conspiracy theories that almost it seems like at this point everyone in the nation views Malcolm as a threat, except for Elijah Muhammad, who's like, "Hey, nope, he'll come back. Just let him be." But again, not much is here to talk about because we already talked about Omar. Instead, we get the big meeting here. Wild Bill and Pike as they meet about Jose Battle being arrested. Out of everything that's said between these two in this short exchange, what was your overall thoughts about this battle between the FBI and the CIA and them putting in a very important part at the end of this, what Wild Bill said as it pertains to exactly what the CIA thought about the FBI?
Yeah, a couple of things here. I mean, the FBI has the upper hand. So I was just curious to see, what will Wild Bill do to sort of rebuttal these claims that they're making and tell them, like, listen, and they're right. Y'all had your chance in Africa. He's on our turf now, so this is our job, and that's technically how it is done. But of course, folks ain't playing by those rules here, because everybody wants to get the big dog, and whether you know who got the big dog, again. But anywho, I just thought it was interesting that we understood that that CIA has surveillance everywhere, and I think the part you talk about is when they said like, "Oh, we got a picture of your boss," technically cross-dressing, and was this
Which
a
is
level?
true.
Yeah, which is just like a level of like, there's a lot of things I think can be made there. I'll just leave it alone, but I think it's just to let them know, like, listen, like we're watching y'all too. Just in case you didn't know we were, but we're watching everything.
We could burn down the FBI because if that photo would have came out at that time, that's it.
Yeah,
because he has to be fired, and that means almost anybody under him would be fired because we understand the homophobia that existed back in that time period. But here it was just the overall conversation between them two. The moment Wild Bill steps in and says, release Jose Battle. Like in the end, you respond to a director. We'll just call Attorney General who responds to the president, and you'll do it anyway. Like it was all a power play to see who had the most power in this situation. That's why I love this scene because again, we don't get to see it too often on screen when the FBI and the CIA disagree, but we do know it happens all the time. But here's just it being shown in the flesh, like, hey, in the 60s, all of this was to see who could get Malcolm X. Where was the biggest threat at for Malcolm? And at this point, Wild Bill may have been more correct because if he's speaking at the UN, the FBI has nothing to do with that. The moment Che Guevara is involved in this, he's not coming into the United States. So at that point, it became a CIA investigation. But again, this is all because the FBI pulled the card, and that was, hey, let's arrest Jose Battle. Because at that point, we can play the CIA whichever way we want to, as long as he's off the table here.
Yep.
But next up, Bumpy meets with Mayme. And this is where we had a conversation about Archie and about Bumpy getting Archie involved in things that Mayme, for some odd reason, still acts surprised that Bumpy's a criminal. I know we talked about last episode about it looked like she was going down this path of turning into more like Bumpy and more bending the rules. What did you think about this scene with her and just the way she kind of explodes on Bumpy for everything to do with Archie?
Rightfully so, because like he comes in and he's just like calling these shots and not really giving her any bit of like detail why. So like he really belittled her in a moment where she was just empowered. So I think it's a lot of that, and obviously because of the relationship here with the
Mm-hmm.
family, it's just kind of just like this sounds like something very shady, and I don't
Yeah.
like it. So it just threw her whole vibe off, and she just threw the food away. That made her think about her daughter. So can't even blame her here. I don't think it has anything to do with the needle moving in terms of like if she's still going to be down with the down, but like I just think that she just wasn't with it. Like Bumpy came in mad disrespectful, just like
I mean,
woman making dinner, fuck that dinner, fuck our daughter too.
wow,
I need you to
he
do
didn't even say
this.
none of that.
I know, but the way how he just completely disregarded something that was very sentimental to her, and like, yeah, of course he wants his daughter back too. So she'll be home soon. But like, then he was like, so by the way, do this. Why? Just do it. Don't question it. Do it. Doesn't sound shady. Also, even though you're asking more questions, I also need you to do more than this. Do this. Explain it in this way and just let it be. And like, are you back to selling dope? Just do it, lady. Like, but at some point
I
now,
mean,
you.
this is
I
the
thought,
'60s though.
yeah, I'm
Like,
pretty sure he's about to ike her. He's about to like.
it was close. They are showing Bumpy to be a very respectable gentleman because when I know about the '60s, it'd have been five across the face. It would have been. That's a lot of talking. That's a lot of talking. I was a little surprised by, but again,
Yeah.
it's also the respect level he has for Mayme.
Yeah.
Like he truly sees Mayme as a partner that he's even telling her this much information to let her know, like, hey, he's involved in things. He has to go. Like, I can't have him around. This is Bumpy attempting to protect someone, but Bumpy doesn't do a good job at showing any emotion when he's trying to do things of this nature. And I think that's what set Mayme off here is that you're calling all these shots, but you're not telling me exactly what's going on here.
Yeah.
Especially after I just bent multiple rules, my own moral compass, so I can attempt to help you.
Facts.
And now it seems like you're right back in the business that I was trying to get you out of. I think that was the buildup of frustration for her there.
Yep.
Next up, again, we have Stella Montana as her and Joe arrive at her dad's house to ambush Olympia. Again, we know how this goes. This is where we find out exactly who put the hit out on Stella, why was the hit put out on Stella, and all this other stuff that is unnecessary to go any further into. Is there anything else you want to talk about with Joe and Stella in this aspect of this episode? Because at this point, we kind of know where we end up at.
Yeah, just Olympia telling her that the little girl act was bullshit. I bust out laughing because I was like, while that could make sense, no, she's still a little girl. You just haven't been around Olympia. She's still doing little girl shit. Don't worry. You need to lock her in the room.
I think she meant the innocent little girl act. You can't be innocent when you don't put up this many bodies.
And she damn sure still act like a little innocent girl. I think she still doesn't realize what she does. Like, she just like, just do whatever I want to get to Paris. I need to meet Jay-Z and Kanye, please. Ball
you
so
can't keep
hard.
on pulling up like Steph Curry from 30. Dropping bodies and then act shocked that you can do it. Like at this point, nah, you fully understand just being Chin's daughter exactly what you're doing here. But next up, we get the murder of Archie by Conrad here.
Wait, didn't you skip something? Oh yeah. Because after they're in the house, they go dig up a body, right?
No. That's what I said. Is
anything
else you wanted to talk about?
Oh, I'm sorry. So yeah. So obviously, they go dig up the body, and they notice it's Frank because of the watch, and then that leads them back to knowing that it's Tommy Lucchese. So they connect the dots, and then we go back to Archie.
There you go.
Else? Oh, in terms of the show production too, just the what's the word here? The
body?
What do you call it? No, the body, the decomposition body prosthetic was fantastic. We watch a lot of horror films, and I gotta say they did that pretty damn good. That shook me, and I was not expecting it to look the way they did for this show. This show continues to surprise me This is really and honestly, because why spend the money to make it look good? You can easily have just done anything. That was a very thought out effort to make that really look like something. And I thought it was cool because you could have easily had a face that just looked like something, but instead, because the face was so decomposed, they had to go to the wash to do it. And even the slime and the little details in that was just fantastic, dude.
Because you wouldn't think that they would put that in this show. You thought you would get the normal corpse that, the skeleton with the wide eyes and the wide mouth, which everybody uses to show a decomposing body at this point. Yeah.
So good job on our
composition. Here you go again. Next up, Archie is killed by Conrad. Now, there's no need to talk about that part because we already know that's kind of point blank and simple. Shot him in his head. We know why he shot him in his head. What I want to focus on is Conrad's meeting right after this, as he meets with Pike. And he says, "You set me up because you gave up information that I had to cover and kill somebody for." Here, at this point, this is fully exposed. Conrad is the rat. Conrad works for the FBI here. But are you surprised by the lengths they went to cover up this, and how Pike, who seems so straightforward, literally had no issue with you having to kill an innocent man to cover up a mistake?
Yeah, it's the FBI. Don't ask me, am I surprised? Yeah, ask somebody else. but in case that wasn't a big thing for you all, understanding that, like, while there was an innocent person that just had to be killed, there also was a what do you call it? Sort of a pawn here.
Yeah.
And Conrad, they also don't care about his fate either. They literally set him up to set somebody else up and don't care about them both. Easily two people disposable by the FBI just to get Malcolm. But Malcolm's just a nobody, just in case you guys still thinking that shit.
But I think the next following scene after that is Conrad, Wild Bill, and Bumpy sitting down and them telling Bumpy they killed Archie.
Yeah,
making it seem like Archie was the rat, which we kind of see from the reaction of Bumpy. Bumpy doesn't believe that at all at this point. And this is where it almost seems like this is where he's starting to put pieces together. Because as they said, the person who's always the loudest about doing things is always going to be the guilty party here. I think this is where the beginning part of Bumpy putting together exactly what happened here.
Or the complete opposite, where he absolutely has no clue how deep he's in the game about. I think he's definitely like, wait, what? Like, I'm confused.
I think he was shocked that they got Archie because he thought he sent him away. But I think the moment he said, and he booked a flight, and Bumpy knew that he did that. So the point that Bumpy knew he did that, Bumpy knew then, like, so he's definitely not guilty.
Yeah, but I also think too that I think he just didn't have any clue just how they were able to like connect that all together. Because again, you think Bumpy feels he's the smartest person in the room, so he's like, I handled this, it's good. Just for somebody to be watching what you did, your move, and then make a move better than yours, and then report it back to you, and you just kind of like, wait, what? Okay. So I think this was definitely almost like a baffling moment to him, where he's just like, I may be too neck deep in something I have no clue how to operate.
So did you think it stayed that way? I know at first when he gets the information it is, but it looks like by the end of the scene, once he's done processing, that he done put something together. Because you just see Bumpy just being there quiet and him looking, and then you see his focus change, and that's what I think it clicked. Like, okay. Now,
I think he went to the eraser board and just started over. That's what I think.
And I think when he started over, I think he automatically thought, what happened if they're all working together here?
Well, that's not a bad assumption either at this point, because you just don't know. You just really don't know. And I think that's, again, when you say, are they working together? That's a super dangerous thing to even consider.
Yeah.
So to think like, I thought that was my contact and they were after us, or are them two working together and they're after me? And then that's why it gets really the aha moment when we realize by the title of the episode that no, even you are a pawn, sir. Everything is about Malcolm. I think that's when he finally gets it. When they finally tell him, like, listen, it's about Malcolm. I know you feel good about yourself now.
The moment Wild Bill says that, That we'll get to that. We'll get to that
Mhm.
soon. But first up, we have Joe meeting with Tommy and laying his cards out on the table, telling him, "I know you put the hit out on Stella." He brings in Olympia to let her know, and Olympia, just like the canary she is, says, "What did you expect me to do here?" The cards that Joe lays out here, by ending this whole conversation with Tommy after he says, "Hey, this is what you're going to do. You're going to sanction Chin. Nothing serious, because as Tommy points out, Chin won't care about the sanction. If he wants you dead, he's going to kill you. He'll deal with anything else later on." And Joe wants it simplified exactly what Chin can and can't do, and then says, if his other biggest fear was me taking Harlem, it's just that he does, because I'm now going to take Harlem away. Now, for anyone who knows history, understand, like, Joe is never the little guy for so long. He literally becomes head of the family. So this was already going to progress this way. Are you surprised it progressed by this point of the season?
Yeah, there's still a lot more that needs to happen here, but this is
Yeah.
definitely a big pivotal moment. And I think this moment just signifies to the families that he's just not a soldier for Chen. He has bigger plans. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a pivotal moment in the history of what happens here. So I like it. Also, I didn't know that Lucchese was sleeping with Olympia. Was that ever
Mhm.
I was like, where did I miss that at here? But
I believe that's why they were so close. That's why she felt so comfortable going to him.
yeah, but I mean, like, I thought, like, there was a little bit of respect and dignity here, but clearly not.
But
But
remember though, they never respected Chin. None
oh,
of them
yeah,
respected Chin. They
yeah,
treated Chin worse than they treated Joe now. Like, they had no respect for Chin.
yeah.
Chin forced his way into their organization.
And Joe's
Because
doing the
remember,
same.
he was given the title the same way Joe was given the title. Chin was just a driver
Yeah,
and got to be head of a family.
yep,
Joe was just a car man and got to be head of the family.
yep, yep,
So I think
yep,
that's why possibly, if the sleeping happened, it happened early and they just kept on doing it.
yep, yep.
But
Yep.
focus on the last part of Joe, then we could just focus on everything with Bumpy for the end of the episode. And that is Joe hitting Stella with a Jodeci line, "Baby, why won't you just stay?"
Uh,
And
I think he's going to talk about
clearly,
the deal that Joe made here too. I mean, beyond that, he says if anything happens, like if he dies, he also gets like half the product as well too. So Joe added a little bit of reassurance to this claim in terms of saying, like, listen, if I tell this, like, I own your life. If I tell this, you're done.
about telling Tommy now, I
Yeah,
own
yeah,
50% of your
yeah.
dope too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he not only played his card, but he also added an insurance policy to it. So, yeah, as you mentioned, as I said, and as you mentioned too, this is a pivotal point of just seeing like Joe is
Mhm.
intimidating, but he's also very smart and calculated. And um, his time to the top of the throne is very near, very near.
Yeah. I mean, again, we know the character. We know the actual person. So
Yeah,
once you know the
he's my
history of the
homie.
person, you know exactly. Wow, not like that.
Oh, okay, my
'Cause
bad.
he'd have called you a couple of words, because clearly you are the wrong complexion to be his homie. We've heard
These are
enough
true.
analogies of monkeys from Joe in the show to fully understand what they
Mm-hmm.
think and viewed there.
Yeah.
But what do you think about just the close of this episode between Joe and Stella? Again, we understand that it looks like Stella's falling for him, as we touched on before. She doesn't decide to leave. I'm wondering, could we get close to the end of having Stella here, or are or is this going to lead to finally Chin being back on screen again?
It's gotta be, and looking forward to that. But it's Stella. Come on now, listen. Stella was just gonna go to Philly, but instead she got her a first class flight to Paris. Joe gets her the nicest hotel for a month, and after that, question marks. What happens? Maybe she hit the streets. Maybe she starts that UK drill music scene. I don't know, but at this point now, it's a question of what makes you happy. And Joe
Yeah.
says, "If you didn't go," and I'm like, "Well, here we the fuck go." Stella once again falling for somebody that is the wrong person. It's either her getting
So
somebody killed or falling in love with the person she shouldn't. But Joe, being Joe, says, no. I'm not talking about nothing romantic, talking about business, because you're way smarter than everybody and you're capable and you're ruthless. I have got to go back a few words here. And I should mention that he said you are way smarter. And I again spit out my drink because he knows goddamn well that is a lie. Because as you mentioned, she easily could have just alleviated all of these things
from the beginning
by just saying, hey, I think I know who killed me. Instead, you decide to hate a person because they didn't grant you freedom because they were listening to what your father said. Which, that's right. Why not protect her if somebody killed you? But why not also tell him, yeah,
this is the person who tried to set the hit up, and maybe you should look into this person. She could have told Lombardi that, and we would have ended it there.
Absolutely.
But instead, I mean, maybe to Joe, he's not accustomed to being around the people that know the business.
Yeah.
And maybe this is a way for, I mean, I can't even say protection from Chen. He's literally killed her other two significant others.
Yeah, there's no telling.
The
but
worst
I mean,
thing you could do is get involved with Stella, because if you do, Chen's going to kill you. That's just the way it goes here.
It's absolutely no telling where this goes, but it is very interesting that she just withheld this information all this time, and now she's actually considering to stay after she finally gets a chance to go. And she's like, yeah, I can just go whenever, I guess. She's like, I guess I can just go whatever, and flashes the ticket, but I don't know. Oh, goddamn Stella.
After spending 8 episodes of wanting nothing but to go to Paris. But as we're closing out, let's do the last 2 things with Bumpy. First, he meets with Pike to go over everything. This is where everything is revealed to Bumpy, exactly what's going on here in this very short conversation with Pike here, which leads to also him looking on the board and seeing that they have everything set up for the UN, which is something only he told Jose Battle about. What did you just think about this whole conversation between Bumpy and Pike and the road it takes Bumpy down?
Yeah, because as the title says, all road leads to Malcolm, and he told him to be very careful because under no under no section of this roadmap does it say Harlem or even Bumpy, sir.
Nope. You are not important here.
You are in the minor leagues right now. These motherfuckers are looking at these major league teams, and that's where they're at with this. And you know, I think a little bit it's intimidating to him, but I think that what he does next is important because now he's been equipped with so much information. What can he do? And it's kind of disheartening because, like, you see that he really tried a lot to protect Malcolm and ultimately to know his fate. But we also know that Malcolm was very much settled with his fate. It's going to be interesting when Bumpy is okay with settling with Malcolm's fate. Where does that look like here? Because, like, anybody, you say, like, hey, the FBI has a whole plan
on place about you.
About you. They don't even have jurisdiction there, and they have a plan. So that tells me one thing. The CIA also got an elaborate plan.
Oh, everybody does. Because everybody needs to get you.
Exactly. And they don't care if they're not even cooperating, which means that collateral is absolutely imminent right now.
And they could care less about it. Ain't got nothing to do with them. As long as they get their man in the end, that's all that matters. And speaking of getting their man at the end, this is where we finally get the bigger meeting. Jose is out, Wild Bill, Conrad, and Bumpy comes in, and Bumpy lays all the cards on the table and informs them that Conrad has to be the rat.
There is no rat. There's only a mole. Well, I love that. To me, I love the stakes in it because it comes up because considering everything we thought this episode, you think like he thinks there's a rat. He's told that there's a rat. So when he delivers the speech and said there's no rat, I'm like, where's he going with this? There's only a mole. I'm like, nice. Nice.
White rats. That's all it is.
Give me your Bumpyism here.
White collar rats. That's what they are. But this leads to one, Wild Bill immediately questioning Conrad and then doing something that is just like Wild Bill.
Yeah.
as he just puts 3 into Conrad's head and then says,
He did double trigger that joint. I was like,
yeah,
holy shit.
hmm
It's a good shot. And that's an
yeah,
easy.
you right there. You could be a horrible shot and still hit him. It didn't matter one bit so. But the key part to me was here at the end when Wild Bill says, if he's guilty or innocent, doesn't matter. Like it's basically him saying, I don't care if you did tell or if you didn't tell. The point that it's a question,
Loose
you gotta
ends.
go. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't
Mm-hmm.
leave loose ends, is what he says here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then it leads to Bumpy with Jose Battles telling him, I only told you about Malcolm and the UN. So for that information to get back, it had to go from you telling Wild Bill and Wild Bill to telling Conrad, which leads Bumpy to tell Jose, I can't trust you anymore. This
Yeah.
partnership is over. What did you just think about this final scene between all of them and where we're going to go moving forward? Because we understand the reason that partnership between Jose Battle and Bumpy exists is because Bumpy needs protection.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I love the conclusion of this episode because it just really heightens everything going into next week.
Mm-hmm.
And I usually don't make comparisons like this because it's kind of annoying, but it is absolutely fitting. And the reason I'm even going to say this is because you know, as a person who watch a lot of combat sports and a lot of film, I hate when people see somebody and because the person looks like somebody, they compare them. And you know, you just say like, oh, tall black guy, just like, oh, he kind of reminds me of another tall black guy, and they really don't remind each other of anything. I want to definitely give a shout out to Joel Marsh Garland, who is the actor playing Wild Bill Harvey, because what an explosive conclusion of this episode. And I literally said he is channeling his inner John Goodman. I said he completely shut this scene down, and I just felt John vibes the entire time. Because listen, John ain't listen. Everyone knows him, seen plenty of movies, and when John takes over a scene, it is almost impossible for sometimes the film or the series to even recover. And I thought the same thing, because I said, well, how much time is left on this episode? Because this episode is over. This episode is completely over. And I just loved the performance here, and it was the exclamation point for all the events that had happened in this episode. So I loved it. And even still, the next scene after this, with Mayme leaving, there's no words besides him saying, "What's this?" and it's over, because I think it was just unrecoverable when you add such a move like that, where you know, you get that moment. So I completely love the scene for the stakes it sets up for next episode and just the conclusion of this episode. So Godfather of Harlem, aka the Princess of Harlem, is definitely getting ready to have a explosive finale in just a couple of episodes here.
Hey, again, I don't think there's anything else to be said. I mean, I absolutely love the end of this episode. It was a good way to show that in the end, Wild Bill just doesn't care that much. It's if he can question you, but then that's the way the CIA has always operated. If it's a question of your loyalty, you have to go. And that's all it was. And what Bumpy was saying, that's what I meant by Bumpy figuring it out at the end, is everything he said made sense. That's the key part there. Like, I think Wild Bill believed him immediately because he was like, all those pieces do make sense. How didn't I see this if you saw this?
Also,
again, it goes back to Bumpy thinking, and at times him actually being the smartest person in the room.
Also, too, you have to kind of admit that, like, you don't want to disturb a man while they're having their whiskey. He just wasn't for it at this point. They were having a good time, having their nightcap, and what's this bullshit? Oh, okay, let me handle this real fast and get back to what we're doing. Back with the boys and whatnot. You got my damn whiskey here. But yeah, with that, with Omar now being upgraded to the head of security for the MMI, chief security for the MMI. We'll see what the 007 agent. That's actually a really good name for him since he came out of Moss 7, 007. Yeah, 007 really? Omar. Yeah, kind of works. We'll see how that plays out too. So
Yeah,
fantastic episode.
and to pay attention to the way this ends with Bumpy, because it ends that way for a reason. Because while he uses all his instincts in the world to find out who double crossed him when it became to his drugs, he used none of those instincts to realize that his wife was going to leave him because of his actions. It says a lot about everything there. But thank you all for tuning in to another recap review of Godfather of Harlem. Again, this is episode 7. All roads lead to Malcolm. You can check this out on Sunday after the episode airs on MGM Plus. And along with this content, check out everything else we got going on. There's plenty of shows to watch. There's plenty of shows that we recap. Most of you all watch them. Just tune in and let us know what you think about them. Comment on it below. Is Stella now the Godfather
princess
of Harlem? Now, she's the Godfather of Harlem at this point. Is the relationship between Mayme and Bumpy over? Do you think that Bumpy and Jose Battle can ever get the trust back in that relationship? And how many more people will Wild Bill shoot in the head because he questions their loyalty?
Or he just wants to get back to his whiskey. And also, Lucy Fry, self-kiss. You are the biggest heel in all of television. Thank you.
Thank y'all for tuning in. Peace, people.